All right, let's get started. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for attending today. Um, we've got this scheduled for 30 minutes. I don't think it'll take longer than that unless people have questions that keeps us on longer. But we're going to be talking about a new AVAIL development, and it is what we call Stream for Egnyte. We're basically doing a direct integration with Egnyte. So my name's Randall Stevens. I'm the founder and CEO of AVAIL, still heavily involved on the product side. So I kind of lead as probably wear more product management hat than anything most of the time. And I'm joined by Aaron Vorwerk from Egnyte. Um, First of all, before we get this kind of started about the specifics of this, we've just had a great relationship with Egnyte the last 3 or 4 years. They've come on the scene, built a great team around the AEC market space. So for those of you, we're gonna kind of run through for those of you that don't know what AVAIL is or don't know what Egnyte is. We're gonna kind of give you a little brief front end of this. But what I'd say about Egnyte is one, our interactions have always been extremely positive. And I think it's a lot of that credit to Aaron and Avram and some of the team that's led this AEC side of the business. So just kudos, Aaron. And now we're actually officially doing some integration work with Egnyte. So hopefully it'll just kind of firm up continued great relationship between our two companies in service of the AC industry. So today, what we're going to do is I'm going to turn the mic over and let him give you a little bit of overview on Egnyte for those of you that are on the call that aren't uh, that familiar with Egnyte. And then I'm going to do the same, vice versa, a little overview about what AVAIL is for those Egnyte people that are on the call that don't have a lot of experience with AVAIL. And then I'm going to walk you through what we're working on. We have a feature called Stream, and like I said, we're doing a direct integration with Egnyte. And I recorded videos are always safer to give demos, especially in this stage of development. So I recorded some videos, but I'm going to walk you through and show you, this is actually well underway. So with that, Aaron, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Randall. And I'll agree, it's all about relationships in any business, but in this business, we're having fun growing uh, dramatically in AEC, and we love building, maintaining these relationships, not just the big conferences and associations and so on, but the partners, the other software providers out there, the conference series, Confluence that AVAIL runs, and other events like that. It's been a blast. So I'll be quick to give those folks that aren't familiar with Egnyte this background. Egnyte, if you want to think of it in just three pillars, if we think of content collaboration and all of the things that that entails, from IT infrastructure to sharing internally and externally, intelligence and all that that entails, from the end user AI and agentic AI that you're thinking of right now, that's hitting our industry, but all of the back end stuff that happens around classifying data and so on. And then data governance, cybersecurity, the compliance enforcement, and all of the other capabilities that governance kind of includes. All of that in one seamless turnkey cloud platform. And what's interesting about Egnyte is that that is unique. That is, you don't usually find this kind of thing in one box. We started in 2007, about the same time as like a Dropbox or Box, but we were never a consumer tool, never a freemium software. We were enterprise focused way back then. Other platforms are kind of moving in that direction today, but Egnyte has advanced a lot over those years, moving from what was pretty novel in 2007 to be a file server in the cloud to something that's much bigger than that today. Next slide. We are not AEC specific in the sense that we cover any industry, and in fact are used on all seven continents by probably almost 25,000 companies now. And some of those you might recognize: Nasdaq, the market, runs on Egnyte; Red Bull, BioNTech, the pharmaceutical company, and then AEC companies like Balfour Beatty and so on. Like we're used in many places, and again, it requires us to achieve certain things to do that. So like, we would have to be able to support, for example, data residency anywhere in the world, which we do, and other capabilities in order to be used in the way that we are. But 4 or 5 years ago now, we started to verticalize as a company. We sort of realized that we had many AEC companies purchasing from us already, and we started to build a team around that. So I'm about 2.5 years into Egnyte now. I was the first hire to focus specifically on architecture. Before that, we kind of had just an AEC leader. Before that, we just had this idea of standing up a vertical business. Now we have verticals in AEC, financial services, life sciences, starting up something that's more on media and entertainment, even though we've had customers in media and advertising for a while. So as we've kind of done that, our team of just AEC focused people has gone from a couple to 150 plus at this point. So we're really going big into the AEC space, and it's become our largest and fastest growing segment. In fact, next slide. We are used around the world by architects, engineers, general contractors, specialty contractors, owners, probably going on 5,000 companies now, and across our millions of end users overall. Like the largest segment by a good margin now is AEC. It's also fast growing. So I've had this privilege of sort of leading the architecture segment, but we're unique for AEC in the sense that it's a global office environment. Go anywhere in the world, work on mobile, work on web, whatever, no VPN required. We really double down on integrations. I came from a 10-year stint at Autodesk. I'm a long-time design technology user myself. So I'm, super interested in how we integrate with applications and platforms like Autodesk Construction Cloud or Bluebeam or Procore or Faro or Drone Deploy, or name your platform, in addition to the hundreds of business applications. We have a ton of experience since 2013 of AI and product, getting smarter and smarter. Our data classification and so on is so strong that even tools like Microsoft Purview will integrate with us in order to use our classification. And then, of course, we focus very, very heavily on data security and compliance. And I think we're just at that point in the industry now where architecture firms, engineering firms are starting to appreciate the importance of doing all of this, sort of underlying foundational work with your data in order to do the advanced, sort of vertical capabilities that AVAIL and others provide. So that's a bit about Egnyte, and I think it leads right into speaking a little bit about AVAIL.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Aaron. So I know a lot of you on the call are, at least when I glanced at several of your AVAIL customers. But as we talk more and more about this integration, we're likely going to be obviously getting exposed to Egnyte customers and able to talk a little bit about AVAIL. So I'm going to give you the real high level about what AVAIL is, and then we're going to dig in and talk about what this integration is about. But AVAIL's been in the market since 2017, so we've not quite got as long a history as Egnyte team has. But when you look at the problem, that we're trying to solve with AVAIL, one, we're 100% focused in the AEC industry with our solutions, and this is where our mindset is. But and ultimately really focused in on these production teams that are doing the architecture and engineering work on a day-to-day basis. So when you look at what we're doing with AVAIL, we usually refer to it as a content management platform. You could refer to Egnyte as a content management platform. So there's lots of different variety. It's a loaded term, but basically, our goal has always been, can we help these teams organize and manage reusable assets for the most part, make sure that there's a single source of truth so that you don't have copies of things all around, ultimately provide a much better experience for searching or surfacing that information that you're looking for on a daily basis during your daily workflow. And, here we say, this information is expansive. Volume is high and getting higher. I know Aaron's shown in previous webinars and presentations as he's given just how much data is being created. It continues to grow. And I'll say it's also spreading. And by spreading, I mean more and more locations that this data may be living in. Yes, you may have Egnyte, but there's a good chance you probably are in ACC. You might have some stuff in OneDrive, or you're collaborating with somebody that's in a different file system. And then you've got, every application's got its own cloud storage. So you've just got information is going in lots of different directions. So one of the ways you can think about Avail is we're able to fuse all that back together into a single interface on behalf of those users. And then ultimately, from a business standpoint, for the architecture and engineering practices, where the rubber meets the road is, can we help make you through these sets of tools and practices more efficient at getting the work done? And then a lot of times helping to reduce errors and omissions, especially in the documentation phase. And this goes back to, it's all tied together. Single source of truth of information. Do we have the right information? Can I find it quickly, get the work done, and make sure that it's right? So you can kind of look at what we're trying to solve. There's a bunch of ways then that we've built software tools and interfaces to help in that quest, but that's kind of at a high level. And much like Egnyte, one of the reasons that we think this is going to be a great partnership is we already share a lot of the same customers. We've got a lot of overlap of customer base. Uh, you know, there were other file systems, I would say 5 years ago, that were spoken about a lot, and now all I hear is Egnyte, Egnyte, Egnyte. So that's why we've decided to dig in and try to make sure that we're servicing our customer base, with the best integration possible. But Avail, we're servicing a lot of great customers around the world, architecture, engineering. I'm just going to show you a couple of slides here that are just interfaces. Avail has what we call a desktop application interface. It becomes the central place that somebody goes to search and look for information, but it's also highly customizable. So I'm fond, since the beginning of this project, saying that every firm has its own language and culture. Avail lets you adapt to your own information, the way you want it presented, and the way that your employees are going to be comfortable, looking for and finding that information. So I've got a couple of screenshots just to show you the variety of the way that people customized and organized. It's also a way of saying that we're very focused on the visuals. So where Egnyte has some capabilities, I know that they've built in around certain file formats, but we're very focused on this technical content, making sure that it's easily searched, that you can see high resolution previews like I'm showing you here of detail libraries and things like that, all without actually having to open up, Revit or whatever the source application is. So have a lot of customers doing that. There's also some features that we've introduced recently, things like the ability to create what we call related content. So you can see here that I've got a Revit family represented that I searched for, but attached to that were sheets and direct links to, basis of design manufacturers that you might be using, schedules down below. So a lot of, extra features you can think about adding in these capabilities around your content workflows. Here's another example of related content where I've got a door schedule and I can see the individual drafting views or schedule that's actually on that sheet and be able to search for that, find it, use it in my next project out of a library. And then I'm not going to talk about this a lot, but we are investing. We're well underway with a new, what we call Harvest for AutoCAD and Civil 3D. So not only Revit, but doing work across the engineering space, primarily around civil engineering now so these are AutoCAD, DWG, much in the same way that we've handled this in Revit over the years. All right. So let's kind of dig into what Stream is. So Stream is a feature of Avail. So we've got desktop applications, we've got plugins, and we've got features, that we've introduced over the years. So Stream, right? What is Avail Stream? It's actually pretty simple in concept, and the idea is that, first of all, I'd say that Avail is designed to be in front of a file system. It's meant to be an interface. Even though we have our own hosting cloud, normally what's popular about Avail with our customers is we let their data, their content, their files reside and stay wherever they've decided they want to store that. So that's really important in this part of the conversation about Egnyte. So if Egnyte is your network solution, cloud first storage and all the things, governance and everything that Aaron kind of laid out for you, you want that data to stay there. You don't want to have to move it up to another cloud location. You'd like for that to be your single source of truth for a bunch of reasons for that information. So you can think about what AVAIL is it wants to sit in front of that data, not move it, but help you access it, do these value-added things on top of that information as part of the workflow. So Stream has been around since the beginning of when AVAIL was introduced, or soon after we introduced AVAIL. And the goal was, can we automatically monitor a file system for information? So we want to look for files that are on a file system. We want to assess, basically have a set of rules that say, do these files matter to whatever you want to be seen in AVAIL's front end? We call those set of rules stream definitions, which I'll show you here in a minute. And then ultimately, you want to reflect after you've gone through that filter, that set of rules. I want this information to now automatically show up in AVAIL. So you can think about it as like automated publishing. You can manually bring things into AVAIL and what we call indexing flow, but the goal was, hey, can we automate some of this on the back end so you kind of get automated publishing of information into AVAIL just based on the fact that files are hitting the file system behind the scenes. So as I said, we've had a version of Stream got introduced in 2017, soon after we launched AVAIL as a product. And really, and that still exists. A lot of our customers are using that. It's designed to sit on a file system, a Windows file system, and watch for traffic and activity on that file system and reflect that back. In 2021, we did the next major revamp to that Stream application in extending support for what's called an SMB protocol. So a lot of, including Egnyte, a lot of cloud-first file storage systems, OneDrive, Google Drive, Dropbox, Egnyte, you name it, they all tend to use a protocol called SMB. And that's whenever you've got ACC, whenever you've got a desktop connector to that storage system, that's the protocol that's being used to make that look like it can be a folder or content on your local system. So we integrated support for that back in 2021. The good news and the bad news is that you can kind of integrate support for this, and I use the word general support because there is a protocol, and if it's followed, everything should kind of work, as designed. Actually, I can maybe tell a little story, Aaron, that actually our first kind of official interaction with Egnyte was probably 3 or 4 years ago now. We were actually running Stream in an customer's environment that had Egnyte as their storage solution on the back end, and we were having some problems with it not picking up certain information on the file system. So we dug into it and didn't think it was anything on our side, and we weren't getting certain signals that weren't being picked up from the Egnyte integration. And we reached out to the Egnyte team, and this is very rare. I'm sure most of you know. They actually listened. We showed them what we thought it was, and they actually, we helped them kind of identify, and they tracked it down to a bug that was in a library that was being used on this SMB protocol. Fixed it, right? And we went on. So that started, what became a great relationship, because that's not always the attitude and the collaboration that you get in trying to solve these problems inside of customers' environments where you're mixing lots of different software solutions together and trying to get a good solution out of it. But we did that integration. The challenge becomes that every one of those implementations has done things a little bit differently, and it's hard to be a generalist in an environment where you got everybody writing their own specific things and sometimes either breaking the rule or not following the protocol exactly. So with that said, what we started thinking about it last year, and doing more and more work with the Egnyte team and just seeing how many more of our customers are using that. We decided earlier this year that we were going to go ahead and start evaluating doing a direct integration with Egnyte rather than using this Windows-based SMB protocol approach to it, to actually use the APIs that are available from Egnyte to do a direct integration so we could make sure we had a best-in-class solution.
And I think this gets you past every IT environment's different. Everybody on the call probably has a general understanding of that. And when you have the ability to use hybrid devices and accelerate things, there's all kinds of stuff that gets into the mix that just makes it harder to say this generic thing's going to work. And I think you guys saw that. So this just
Yep.
removes that from the equation entirely.
So we started this back in April. I'm now playing you a video that I recorded yesterday afternoon, just showing you this in action. We're not going to get into a ton of the details about the backend configuration, but what you're seeing here is us building a stream definition. Uh, the connection, as you can see up at the top of this video, one, if you're an Egnyte user, you get your domain for your account, your company. I'm still learning all the lingo, so Aaron can correct me when I get it wrong. But basically, we set up one for those of you that are using Egnyte. We're doing this as a service account. So on the back end, it gets around user level problems, permission problems, and password, expiring and all those kinds of things. So it's integrated as a service level account. And then what you're seeing here is I'm basically setting up the rules to say, hey, I want to watch a certain part of the Egnyte network that's been set up. And here's the set of rules, and I'm going to drive that data. I want that to reflect itself in AVAIL channel. So here you can see that I update that, and there's my stream definition that now shows up. And now I'm bringing the AVAIL desktop front and center going into that channel. And I'm going to start refreshing here because as we pointed that stream service at that part of the Egnyte directory structure, it's now going through and saying what files are here. And as it encounters those files, it's telling AVAIL, registering basically the stream is now telling AVAIL, hey, this should show up in AVAIL as a piece of content or piece of information. So I just refresh this a few times, just showing you that the data is starting to roll in. We'll talk about in a few minutes what the time frame and other things are going to have to happen. But this is the general capability that we want. Files are sitting over on the file system. We want to be able to set up a set of rules that say, hey, watch this part of the network. And then based on this set of rules, I want that information or data to show up in AVAIL. We call them channels inside of AVAIL. So here I'm going to use a Revit specific example where I've got a test channel that I've set up here for Revit content. Scroll through here. We've still got some interface cleanup and stuff to do before this ever reaches you all, but you'll get the idea. So here we are. I've choose the channel that I want that to go into. And here's the important part. Here we're looking at this is looking at Egnyte. And there I've got a directory structure with files in it. I said, hey, monitor this file structure. And so there's the path that we're going to. And then AVAIL lets you set up filters. I didn't do it in that first one, but here I can say, hey, I only want to get files that are file type RFA. So this would skip over, type catalog files or, other types of files. You can do some sophisticated things like skip backups and all those kinds of things in that set of rules. But once that's set up, that stream, it'll kick in automatically, go into action. And if I pull the AVAIL desktop back up here and switch to this Revit library channel and start refreshing, you're going to see that data starting to pour in. I think I go through a couple of these and I sped the video up about 4x so you didn't have to, painfully watch it. So it is one of the things, the number of how fast we can make this work. There's ways that we're getting ready to turn this on, what's called rate limiting. We're going to be able to do this a lot faster as this progresses with the Egnyte team. So, but you can see that I'm just refreshing and bringing in, if you look down in the bottom right, tells you how many results there are. There's 40, now there's 48. So that data is just streaming in. And, for those of you who do use Stream, you'll know that if there's a lot of data, the first time you hit it can take a while for that to come in. But then all you're looking at is what we would call the deltas. What's changed? Did a file change or not? So now what I'm going to do is show you that for those of you that are new to AVAIL, all this becomes searchable. I showed you in those screen grabs, we can do high-res previews of all this information. And here I've got Revit opened up, and this is the normal, use case for a lot of our customers. Help me find these assets, help me bring them into Revit. So what I'll show you after we pop back out of Revit is that that file, right, that door was sitting in Egnyte. It's sitting in that directory structure in Egnyte. Didn't have to do anything else except say that you're going to go, that this is the asset that I want to use once I searched and found it inside of AVAIL. So I think I'd do that here in the video. I'll right click, show you in the information panel. There's my Z drive, which is where we've got our Egnyte mapped to locally. But if I right click on that and say open the location, it's just going to open up Windows File Explorer to that location of where that file sits, on my network, on my Egnyte network drive. So, so from that standpoint, that's why you can have a single source of truth sitting there in Egnyte, management control, all the great things that Egnyte does for you. And that yet that stuff can be automatically now reflected in your AVAIL interface, and you can do all the extra things with that you want to be able to do through the workflow. And here I go back, I'll just show you that, what we would call CRUDs. We handle creates, updates, deletes, reads, updates, and deletes. So here I'm going to index new content in. I just drug a folder over on the Egnyte, adding it. So I'm going to refresh, and you're going to see, I think, 2 new PDFs show up. So you'll see those show up in AVAIL, maybe after the second time. Refresh. And then again, here's this PDF, and one of the features of AVAIL is we've got built-in, viewers for this stuff right in the application. So I touch that file in AVAIL, open up what we call the preview panel, and I'm looking live at that PDF document. Again, that PDF is sitting back there in the Egnyte drive where it was meant to be stored, meant to be saved, and you didn't have to put copies of that anywhere. I'm also going to show you here that we handle renames, so that'd be an edit. So here I go into the file system. I'm just going to put an underscore in front of that to change the name of the file. And, normally that would break most content management systems if you did something like that. But because Stream is actively monitoring, you can see that updated and reflected immediately. So it seems it's pretty simple in concept that, what is back there on the Egnyte drive, we want reflected and showing up in the AVAIL system from this standpoint. And here I'm going to delete both of those now and from the file system. And then if I go back to the AVAIL channel and refresh, we'll see that those files are gone. So sometimes it makes sense to manually index data. It depends on what you're doing and managing it. I show those marketing examples. Those are great examples because there may be a resource library that sits over on the network, and what you don't want to, especially if it's intermittent kind of updating of those kinds of things, you just always want to see what the latest is that's available and have it, searchable and findable in AVAIL. So those are great. I would call more passive uses where you'd like to set Stream up, set it up and forget it, set up the rule and say, hey, I've got a marketing channel now that's exposed to my production team and the marketing department. When they want to change out a logo or give us an updated template for something, they can just throw it on this part of the network and we'll automatically see it. And it's what our entire production team is going to have access to. So I just think those end up being, really good examples for that. We're probably going to go over. I thought we'd do this in 30 minutes, but for those of you that can hang on, we'll be happy to open this up and answer any questions that are coming in. But what everybody probably wants to know is the timeline. So we started on this back in April, working on it, the coding. I showed you, we've kind of got the core of it working. We're working now on getting the tags to come in properly and auto tag. So we'll continue this month, probably into next month, getting that kind of core capability done. And then the goal is, sometime probably, later in August and for sure by September, we plan to be out in customers' environments, getting this installed and getting it tested and just making sure it, let's put here field testing. I call it in the wild, right? You kind of got to get it out there and get it working. And then I think, we'll have that completed, should be by the end of the third quarter. And then, the goal would be move into the fourth quarter, full production for everybody that wants to be able to take advantage of this. So that's kind of all I've got, to kind of show you an update. We'll see if any questions or if anybody wants to answer any of those. I'm going to leave it at this though, just to kind of get your wheels turning. So I'm putting up this actually it was a slide I used in an internal meeting a couple of weeks ago. But when you think about, we talk about content all the time. I tend to want to say it's information, really. It just encapsulates itself in a file, and that's when people start calling it content of some type. But I think we're in this, and Aaron, chime in because I think you probably would agree. We're entering this new age where that information is going to get pulled out of these files. Everybody's looking and talking about AI and doing new things. This stuff's real because we're starting, collectively, we're all kind of working on new ways to pull that information forward. So I think, we've got a bright future in that you've got Egnyte in place, you've got great, not just low-level storage, but all the layers of capabilities that Egnyte puts on that, through governance and everything that they're doing. And you layer in something like AVAIL, where we've got deep integrations into these specific applications and are doing very specialized stuff with the data inside those file formats. So you can think about, the way I think about that is it's a complete stack. Where's that data stored and originated? What all's happening to it there? And then all the way upstream through things, no pun intended, through things like AVAIL and on into the application, you're going to see, I think, a lot of exciting new capabilities coming with being able to reach into that data and pull it forward automatically. So we're working on, for those of you that are on the call that are customers that we do roadmap calls with, we're working on what we call a suggestion engine, which is a form of understanding this information and automatically bringing it forwards instead of the users having to go search for it. So I just think that there's a lot of exciting things. And Aaron and I, have become friends over the last couple of years as we've done more and more of these interactions. We're already starting to kick around like, okay, what else, besides the core, now that we got the core capability in place, what other information's in Egnyte that can be pulled into AVAIL, and what will we do with that? So I think you'll see this is just the start of what will be a great collaboration effort with the Egnyte team. Aaron, anything to add to that?
No, 100% agree. I mean, if we're ready to do questions, there's a question that kind of I love where Brian's head's at when he asks this question. He says, "Can we use metadata tags from Egnyte in our AVAIL stream definitions?" I'm like, I don't know what the answer is. Randall, you can share that answer, but I'm in my mind, I'm like, that's one of those directions we should be doing something synergistic here between
Yeah.
AI surfacing something and yours grabbing onto it and using the logic of it. And yeah.
Yeah, I think Brian, if there's already tags on information there and it's available through the APIs, we ought to be able to give you the option to pull it through and attach it to AVAIL, right? Make it searchable in our search engine and all those things. We've got a couple of questions. Helen asked, are we planning to use Egnyte in addition or instead of AVAIL Cloud for publishing? It's a good question, Helen. I was on a call yesterday with a potential customer, and here's the way I think I'm consistent. I don't want to be in the cloud storage business. AVAIL does have its own ability to host in cloud, but more and more, every company already has another corporate solution that is a cloud hosting solution. So if it's Egnyte, or maybe you're still just using your OneDrive, or maybe you're using ACC, those are all cloud first data file storage solutions, and AVAIL works with those. So I'm always challenging people that say, we want to use your cloud hosting? And I'm like, well, don't you already have it? Why do you want to just add another one when you might have a perfectly good? And I think it's just a mindset or a mind change to get people to think like that. But if you've ever seen our demos for the last 3 years, our entire AVAIL's entire demo setup is running on Egnyte. And we did that because we could go anywhere in the world with my laptop and log in and know that I can get to the data, and I didn't have to carry it around I used to carry it around on a little external storage drive so I could make sure I could plug into a machine and had it. Now we just use Egnyte and it's like perfect. I can go anywhere in the world and it works. So I think that was also one of the confidence builders for us about like, wow, this is solid. We haven't ever had any problem with it at all. So,
Hey, now Tom asked you, and I think we talked about this last night, or I was asking you this last night. So you may get to this. Does it have an ability to look at only new content? Meaning ignoring existing content already stream is live, right?
yeah, that's a good question, Tom. So I think that because I think the way that you're going to want to use this is to not mix content in a channel where you've manually indexed some in and then used Egnyte, Stream for Egnyte to stream it in. It gets really hard for us to then reconcile what did you add? I think it's better to say 4 channels where you want to use this, make the file system the source of truth, put the information there, and let it automatically stream in. And if you removed it from the file system, it's going to remove from the channel. It gets really complicated when you start trying to mix those. So I think I understand probably what you're getting at, Tom. We've started talking about it and thinking about it. I don't know that we're going to lock it down that you can't add content in there, but I think it just makes for a more complicated environment. We'd either have to build some new capabilities to let you kind of know where that info came from and when it came in, and you know, anyway, it gets complicated.
Do your filters include like timestamps?
Uh, Not currently, that's not one, but I think to Tom's question, if what you had manually indexed in was the source of truth location, and then it was from Egnyte, and then you set stream for Egnyte up, we wouldn't create duplicates. We're going to know that that's the item that's already in there, and we're going to just update that if it was already in there. So there's some things to get figured out, but anyway, we'll get there. Let's see, one last. All right, Tom. Yeah, I don't think you'd have to rebuild. We'll test that, Tom. I don't think you're going to have to rebuild your channels. If your data is already sitting in Egnyte, I think you're going to be good. You'd be able to just turn the stream service on when you wanted to, and it's not going to cause a problem. And then somebody's asking if you're not using Egnyte, can you use this with SharePoint? The answer is yes. SharePoint's basically built on OneDrive and Microsoft, file storage system behind the scenes, and you can set our existing stream service up to watch those accounts.
We can help you fix that though.
Yeah, every one of those solutions has its own. One of the biggest problems is is getting thumbnails from the files, and it's because every one of those that follow that, the dirty little secret of thumbnails is thumbnails actually in the binary of the file, whereas most of that SMB protocol is about the name and the folder kind of layer. And so the data is not actually there to get a thumbnail from a file. So there's some complications there. What we're doing with Egnyte is we're using their what we call webhooks to actually see the data, and we actually pull the data and grab the thumbnail out of that and get it extracted. So that's where we've, really gone and starting to go that extra mile to make sure that get the best experience this. Are there any issues with mapping thumbnails and loading channels? I think I just answered that, Bill. We're pulling thumbnails from the files. We did work over the last few years to write our own thumbnail handlers, so we basically aren't relying on the host software. Like I always use SketchUp as an example. You're not gonna see SKP files sitting in Egnyte on a machine that doesn't have, unless they've done something special, that doesn't have SketchUp installed, because there's a file type handler to get that thumbnail and tell Windows how to get that thumbnail out of that file. So we've done about 30 of the most popular files that we know are used in the industry. We've written our own file type handlers, which we're taking advantage of in this work that we're doing on the Egnyte. So we get to see that data back in Egnyte, pull those files down, and if it's an SKP file, we know how to get the thumbnail out of it and are automating that part of the process. So. Uh, all right. Here's another question. Will there be the ability to use multiple Egnyte drives, domains per AVAIL stream instance? I would assume a service account is required for each Egnyte domain. Good question. The answer is yes, you could set up multiple stream. You can set up multiple I'm not going to get back into the language, but you'll establish what's called a stream server, and you can actually set up multiple of those per service account inside. So you can create multiple service accounts you can create multiple stream servers, Egnyte servers, and then you can assign those to parts of the network. So I think to answer your question, yes, you're going to be able to kind of set up and ultimately thinking about the use case, which is users are going to want to create stream definitions based on areas of the network where there's files that you want to give them access to or that are going to be published. So you'll be able to have pretty good granularity of being able to set that up behind the scenes. So. And then most important, somebody asked who won F1 Boston. We did the references. We kind of gave the first public announcement that this was going on back at AIA in early June. Did a joint event together at the F1 Boston, and somebody wants to know who won. Do you remember who won, Aaron?
I don't. I mean, it was probably Kyle Bernhardt, but he came in as kind of a heavy hitter,
Is
has
he a
a
ringer?
simulator at his house. Yeah,
Okay, yeah, yeah. Will
yeah.
said
Will
Kyle was a
will
ringer.
just
Yeah.
confirm that. Yeah.
Uh, all right. Well, for those of you that hung on an extra 10 minutes, I'm happy to stay here. I don't have anything backed up against this. If there's any more questions, you can see we just wanted to, we kind of scheduled this, about 6 weeks ago, that we were going to do this. And a lot of that's when things are like this are in development. It's like, okay, when can we show something? So we kind of had a stake in the ground, and luckily it came together over the last couple of weeks that we could have a live demo or a recorded live demo.
And I saw your timeline for general availability, Randall, and it just strikes me that Confluence aligns with that pretty closely. So
Yep, we do an event here called Confluence in October. I don't want to I don't want to compare myself, these days to Elon Musk, but he's always overly aggressive in his timelines, and I tend to be the same. I'm always optimistic about it, but I think that I think we'll be in dev and in testing with users this quarter. And I think, unless there's any major surprises that, we'll have general availability going into the fourth quarter with this. So I feel relatively confident. So you always jinx things when you're doing dev and you start throwing out timelines and, but all good. And, yeah, I think it's going to be a great feature to add. And, again, thanks, Aaron, you and the team, for support over these years. And, with that, we can wrap it up.
thanks, everyone.
All right. Thanks.